Hello folks, shintigercurl here, that dude in the straw hat, bringing you yet another wrestling video. It is currently, at my time, 6:46 a.m. on Thanksgiving. So, you're probably wondering to yourself, why is shintigercurl doing a Thanksgiving video early in the morning? Well, there's a reason for that. But first, a little background on the subject at hand. In early January, Philip Jack Brooks, aka CM Punk, aka the Straight Edge Savior, aka the best in the world, after wrestling in the annual Royal Rumble event, all of a sudden disappeared from the WWE. No one from that point on, it was just theories and speculation about why and how he left. What were the circumstances behind why and how he left? Stories were abound about what happened between that meeting between him and Vince after the Royal Rumble. And since then, there have been theories, questions, speculation, from he wasn't getting paid enough to he wasn't in the main event to he was just injured or he had some dispute with Vince to physical altercations and what have you. Now, a lot of people still were backing Punk for his decision, while others were saying that he breached contract and he just walked out for no apparent reason. One of my loyal viewers, Legato, and I have oftentimes, he knows this, him and I have had disagreements about our feelings towards Punk. He was a fan of his, but has recently said that that the guy breached his contract and as such didn't really care. And as such just pretty much said, fuck Punk. I told him and everyone else that I wasn't for, or I wasn't supporting or condemning Punk because of this. You see, the type of person that I am, with situations like this, I prefer to have all the facts. People can make baseless accusations and assumptions, but they don't have all the facts. Up until this point, I did not have all the facts. No one did. The WWE wasn't speaking on it. CM Punk wasn't speaking on it. All we had were stories, rumors, theories, hearsay, and conjecture. And you can't base proper judgment on that. You need facts. You need something from either party involved in the incident. And so, for the majority of the year, people have been speculating whether or not Punk will return. And this was aided by the fact that his wife, AJ Lee, continued to wrestle under the WWE, and even when she wrestled, people chanted CM Punk because they took her staying as a sign that Punk might return. And the dirt sheets went crazy with all kinds of speculations on whether or not Punk would return. Well, we got our answers. This morning, Colt Cabana, CM Punk's best friend and indie superstar himself, who has a podcast called The Art of Wrestling, very popular podcast, loaded up a special show. This show was sort of an interview with his best friend CM Punk. Now, I can't say all what was in it because it's almost a 2 hour long show, but I suggest you watch it. It's on YouTube right now. Go look it up. Art of Wrestling CM Punk. You just look it up and watch it and listen to it from beginning to end. But we finally got some information about why CM Punk walked away from professional wrestling. Now, mind you, CM Punk was considered one of the most dedicated people in the professional wrestling industry. He was, some would say, the perfect wrestler. He was excellent on the mic. His in-ring skills were beyond reproach. He could do commentary. His character was such that he could play a heel and a face flawlessly, and he could have a 5-star match with almost anyone in the business today. But he also had a good mind for the business about who should be pushed and how storylines should evolve and what have you, and how characters should interact with one another. He had a very keen mind for professional wrestling. But this interview basically gave me, most of all, what I wanted. He gave me the facts, and the fact was that Now, I'm not gonna say that. Not gonna say fuck WWE, and I'm not gonna watch them anymore. People say that shit all the time. People saying I'll never watch WWE anymore. Fuck them, is about as convincing as when a wrestler says he's going to retire. In this industry, unless your name is Shawn Michaels, retirement doesn't mean much. I mean, Mick Foley has retired how many times, and he still gets back in the ring. Ric Flair supposedly retired after his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, but continued to wrestle in TNA. Terry Funk has retired more times than I care to count, and the dude is in his 60s. So that's what it's like for me when people say, "Oh, fuck WWE, I'm not going to watch them anymore." I'm not going to say that, because I'm going to continue to watch WWE because there are people that I want to see succeed. But this kind of paints a different picture of what of how things are run backstage. Now, Punk said, and I believe him because that's the kind of guy he is, that his entire interview was not a shoot interview about fuck WWE, fuck Vince McMahon, fuck Triple H, blah blah blah. He was just telling the reality of his situation at the time. And the reality of his situation was he was busting his ass off when he really wouldn't be busting his ass off for the industry and for the WWE, and he wasn't getting the proper respect or rewards that he felt he was deserved. And that's right. I mean, the amount of injuries he was sustained during that time period and how much he had to work was mind-numbing. I mean, the man put in so much work to give out the best product he did, and Triple H and Vince didn't really appreciate him, which is a shame. And he said he was very, very injured, and they kept asking, and he kept saying, "I'm hurt. I need some time off," and they wouldn't give that to him. And there were just the things he brought up in the interview, in the podcast itself, were kind of showcasing what the smart marks kind of knew about the WWE's policies, about how he wanted to start doing sponsorships to bring more attention to the brand, but they wouldn't let him. But they let Brock Lesnar come in wearing Jimmy John's on his trunks, and he was like, he wanted to bring Chael, he wanted to escort Chael Sonnen to the ring for his title fight, in UFC. Vince didn't want that. A couple of weeks later, Triple H walks Floyd Mayweather to the ring. So I can understand from his, if you're in I mean, the best job in the world is to do something you love. Like, if you love something, get paid for it. If you love doing, like I'm trying to write, I love to write, and I want to get paid for it, and I'm still working on my book. And that's what was for CM Punk. He loved professional wrestling. Watch the documentary about him. He loves professional wrestling, and for him to say in the interview that he hates professional wrestling and wants nothing to do with it, it breaks your heart. Well, it breaks my heart, because here was a man who was just so dedicated to the industry, to the sport and the industry, that he has put his body on the line so many times that he would say that. Shows you just how burnt out and how frustrated he was with how things were going, and he cites a couple of instances throughout his career that show you that he wasn't being appreciated or getting the recognition or the payment that other guys were getting, even though he was putting on greater stuff. I mean, in one particular part of the interview, I remember, he talked about that match he had with Taker, and that was the best match on the fucking card. And he didn't get paid as much as Triple H, Brock, The Rock, and John Cena were getting paid. So you do the best match on the card. You wrestle The Undertaker, even though Punk wasn't at 100%. He was pretty injured from what he says. So I'm like, so he's like, why am I not getting paid the same price, even though I'm paid as much as these guys are, even though I basically wrestled the main event that really wasn't really the main event, but really was, and I blew their matches out of the water, but I'm still not getting paid the same amount as these guys. Now before you go on, he does say that despite how things ended, he still has friends in the WWE. He does not say a bad thing about John Cena. He says he likes John Cena. If people say it's because he doesn't like Brock Lesnar, him and Brock Lesnar are tight. And there's a lot of people in the WWE that he's still tight with. And it's just understand. But people just say he breached his contract. But he's an independent contractor, so he could have left at any time that he wanted. But what I'm trying to say is that I understand. Since I have this side of the story, and the WWE, Vince nor Triple H have come out any time in the last 9 months to say anything against him. I mean, they could have thrown him under the bus and just ripped his ass a new one and done all this and that, completely disregarded him, but they didn't. This was kind of telling about how things were between him and Punk, that the WWE would allow this to happen with Punk, and just for him to just leave like that and not really seek any kind of active prosecution for supposedly breach of contract. It does get brought up in the interview. Like I said, go watch it. This is just my thoughts and opinions about this particular interview, because this is what I wanted. It gave me answers that I've been wanting for months. And now that I got these facts down straight, I can honestly say that he was kind of right. I mean, he just didn't love the business anymore because of how things were going, and how his body was just in bad shape. I mean, by the time he left, he had a giant purple bump on his back, and when he went to an independent doctor, the doctor said he had a full-on staph infection, and he said that it's amazing that he could work with that, doing what he was doing, taking the bumps that he was taking, and not die, because staph infections are serious shit. So there's that. So I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna say fuck WWE or fuck Vince or fuck Triple H, because everyone says that, but they still continue to watch the WWE regardless. This just opened my eyes to the whole situation at hand, and I will say that based on what Punk has been, what he says, and there is nothing that has been presented in the WWE otherwise to contradict or disprove anything that he's saying, that I can take that stuff at face value, and I tend to believe him. I mean, it just sucks that he had to go through that shit, but I'm glad that he is in a better place now. I mean, he's been appearing on The Walking Dead. He's been offered a whole bunch of shit, and if you haven't known by now, he has been hired by Marvel to write for Thor, and if that succeeds, he wants to move on to work on the Punisher, which he's always wanted to do. Everyone knows that CM Punk is a massive comic book fan. So there's that. So if you're watching this, just go ahead and just look up Art of Wrestling, CM Punk on YouTube. It's there. It's worth listening to if you have any interest in this. It's a good listen. And it's not him just going off just saying, like he said in the end, it's not a whole shoot promo where he says, fuck WWE, fuck all of them. A lot of former WWE guys say this. They do backhanded ass comments towards it, and they say this, but but as soon as WWE comes in, they pick them up and he does it again, and they jump right back on the horse with the WWE. Punk goes on to say, I'm not saying this is not an anti-WWE tirade. I could have done that if I wanted to, but he didn't. He said this was just the reality of the situation of which he had to go through. That was his life. This is what he was going through. I mean, I could say a lot of negative shit about my time working at the Sprint Center in Kansas City, but I'm not going to say fuck them. I've had some bad experiences up there. Still one of the best jobs I've ever worked. I've had some bad experiences up there when the members of the operations crew weren't getting fed properly for doing what we do, for helping make all the shows that happen at the Sprint Center go on, and we really didn't get as much respect or acknowledgement as we could. But that's just not me saying fuck them. That's just the fact of my job. Just the same with CM Punk. What he was saying was not a tirade against the WWE. It was just him stating the facts of his job at the time. It just so happened that the facts of the job were he had his time got progressively shittier and shittier as time goes on. And if you're working a job that you can't work anymore, that you just don't love, and you're just constantly miserable, then it's best to just move on. And this is what Punk is doing. So for those of you who still say fuck him, he sounds like an asshole, if you're working a job and it gets progressively shittier as time goes on, and you're putting your best into it, and it just doesn't seem like you're getting appreciated or getting reward out of it, it would be best for you to just move on. Just say, hey, I'm leaving. This is what I'm doing. I'm sorry, but I'm just not happy anymore. This was the reality of Punk's situation. So there's that, and frankly, I'm happy for Punk. So like I said, go look it up. It's on YouTube right now. It's about almost 2 hours long. So listen to it while you got the time. I mean, you listen to it while you're basting the turkey. So there's that. So that's all I can say. So enough of this. I'm gonna go get ready for get Turkey Day ready. My mother's in the kitchen working on the turkey and the sweet potato pie and the dressing and potato salad. I'm gonna get everything ready, and I gotta go get dressed and trim up my beard. Still working on my book. So until the next time, it's shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, saying good day and happy Turkey Day.